Welcome to Beacon of Speech. What is Beacon of Speech? It is selling freedom of speech to everyone. Well, not everyone, not to Joe because he's not here. I'm Fred Hunt. Across the table from me is Ted Coley. Hi, Ted Coley.
Hi, how you doing? Hey, there's like almost no red.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell is going on. I didn't do anything to change. Last week we had to start the show like 7 times because we kept getting weird feedback colors. Like every word we said, it said it was out of range and it was coming up red. So far, it's only done it once, and that's when I did my high-pitch hello. Joe Kaufman is stuck in Michigan. He was supposed to be back in order to do our webcast, so we're going to start without him. Hopefully, he's back in time. So if his wife is listening, at least he is working. Okay. So I don't think she'll ever listen to us. Do you think she has any interest in listening to Beacon of Speech?
I don't know, but if I had to guess, I would say no.
Yeah, I would guess no, because she's taking care of the kids and stuff. Our topic today, Ted Coley, is non-traditional comedians. You know, I've heard a lot of stuff in the last week, and it made me laugh out loud, but no, it wasn't real comedians telling jokes. It wasn't like Tosh Point oh, right? And it got me to thinking, are there any comedians nowadays, Ted? And I'm sorry to put you on the spot right from the beginning. Are there any comedians today that you would want to see if they came to a comedy club, like they came to Hilarities downtown?
Louis C.K. maybe?
Oh, I think that was Bob. See, do you watch that show, Louis?
No.
Oh, okay. You just like Louis C.K.?
Yeah, I mean, in the very limited, times I've seen him,
Okay.
I thought he was funny. Like I've seen him, like when he hosted
Oh,
SNL
okay.
and stuff like that. But I've never seen like a full.
So you would be interested in seeing him?
I think so. From the little I've seen,
Yeah.
he seems very funny.
When I was younger, and I think I've said this before, but I always liked Bobcat Goldthwait. So if I saw him in concert, and he was actually pretty funny, but because I had his album, I knew like maybe a third of the skits. You know what I mean? So,
Is he still around?
he's still around, but he doesn't do a lot of stand-up. He's like he was a producer on the Jimmy Kimmel Show. He was a writer on a few movies, so he's active, but more behind the scenes instead of in front of the scenes. But when I was thinking about that, I'm like, I don't know. I would like to see Mitch Hedberg, but he's dead. Okay, I always loved Sam Kinison. He's dead.
Yeah.
George Carlin, he died. Right, I would have liked to seen him, but there's nobody that I really would want to like go out and pay money and see. And that's why I want to tell you about the 3 comedians that made me laugh out loud this week. Do you have any other comedians you want to talk about? If Jerry Seinfeld came. Would you pay $200 to sit in the front row and have him make fun of your clothes?
No. And I think Seinfeld's great.
Oh, I think he's great too.
But, as far as paying that much money, I mean...
Seinfeld is like going to a restaurant with a menu with no prices on it. You know that you're going to pay out the nose to see that guy. You know what I mean? Because I actually looked in there. I'm like, oh, how much are Seinfeld tickets? And they didn't show it. And I clicked on the tickets button. And it still didn't show it. It said, are you still interested in tickets? And I clicked that. And they're like, what is your credit card? Like, they still didn't give me the price.
Yeah.
And I'm like, uh-oh. They want my credit card number before they give me the price. So
in other words, if you have to ask, you can't afford
yeah, if you have to ask, you can't afford Seinfeld tickets.
No, I mean, do you like Louis C.K.?
I don't know that much about it. Everybody says how great he is, but the few things I've seen him on, I'm like, eh.
Yeah, all right.
But everybody says watch his show, but I don't watch his show either.
Yeah.
Again,
no, I don't either. And like I said, I've only seen him a couple of times in just like very short things.
I like the Sarah Silverman program, but most comedian-driven shows aren't that funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when I was thinking about it, I couldn't think of anybody like, your favorite band. If you wanted to see your favorite band, oh, I want to see them. I'm like, I can't think of any comedians where I'm like, I gotta see them when they come to Cleveland.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't go to see him, but if if somebody gave me tickets or whatever.
You would go. There's nobody you're paying to see, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
You cheap ass bastard.
Yeah, well,
let me tell you the 3 comedians who made me laugh this week. Number 1 is Sean Peyton of the New Orleans Saints. Okay, why is Sean Payton a comedian?
I think I heard something about this. Oh man, you know what? Just tell me because I know I heard he said something that had nothing to do with football, right?
Sean Payton, one of his ex-players, Will Smith, was shot down in the streets of New Orleans. And don't get me wrong, it's horrible. Will Smith went to Ohio State. From everything that I heard, Will Smith was a good guy. There's still details emerging about the shooting, but the one thing you cannot deny is Will Smith was shot in the streets of New Orleans.
Yep.
So Sean Payton came out and he said, violence in society has got to stop. Guns really need to be banned. Now, that is arguably the most hilarious thing I've heard. And why is that? Because Sean Payton coaches the most violent sport in America. And he's like, we have to ban guns. Now, again, I cannot beat this into the ground enough. You know how I beat things into the ground over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I do not like guns, okay? But as soon as they come and get your guns at Amendment 2, they come and take away your speech at Amendment 1, okay? It's the same premise. I don't like guns. I wish there were less guns. I do. I wish to the gun taken away fairy that there weren't any guns. But in reality, if you take them away, China would probably march in here 30 seconds later. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I read an article one time, and I can't remember who it was by, but it was somebody in Russia, and they said, we would never occupy America because all those crazy people have guns.
Yeah.
It's a whole country full of crazy gun-toting people. Right? And so Sean Payton's saying that violence in society has to stop. If you want to ban violence, the second thing you do after banning guns is banning football.
So all these years of violence, all these centuries of violence are going to stop because Sean Payton says so.
Yes. And don't get me wrong, I think Sean Payton's a good coach. He seems like, of all the coaches in the NFL, he's one of the more level-headed and well-spoken. And I don't even disagree with him that I wish there was less guns. Okay, I wish. But the guy is a coach of a football team. Their whole job is to beat the other guy in the head. Oh, it's not our job to beat him in the head. It's our job to tackle him and strip away the football nicely. If it went to two-hand touch, football would still be great. Well, that's just a big lie. Football is a violent sport, just like you can't take the violence out of boxing. Well, instead of hitting the guy in the head, you tear out his knee. You know what I mean? If you want less violence, tell kids not to play football as kids. Or tell kids not to play football when they're young. When they get to college, I think they said something like the football team in the top 100 football schools in America was responsible for like 50% of the crime on the campus. It was something like way out of whack, right? Okay, Sean Payton, no more football in college, no more football for kids, no more pro football in America. If you want to have a magical football league, you could do like, I did a top 10s article about top 10 emerging sports, and one of them was ultimate frisbee. And they said, well, it's basically played like football. You got two flags on the side. If you yank the flag while you got the frisbee, you're out, but you can throw the frisbee.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Sean Payton, you could be coach of the New Orleans Flyers, and you guys are trying to throw the magical disc into the end zone. And again, it's not the message, it's the messenger. I mean, there's almost no one worse. It'd be like Lance Armstrong giving a speech on not cheating. America would be better if people didn't cheat all the time. It'd be like, yeah, thank you. So that was my first comedian. Do you want to add anything about it? Because, like I said, the whole Will Smith thing, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's tragic all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can say is that I really don't know Sean Payton. So I don't know if his beliefs were that strong before this happened. Maybe it's more pronounced because he's upset.
Yeah, more emotional because he loved Will Smith.
Yeah,
which is fine and possible. But again, you're saying this with the New Orleans hat on and in the building prepping to take out the knees of some running back.
It would be even more ridiculous if it was like the 1970s Oakland Raiders. Or
Oh,
something.
yeah. Yeah, Al Davis
Yeah.
comes out and says we need to ban guns. And don't get me wrong, football, and we've said this, we must have talked about the concussions in football and football dying 6 times, okay? If somebody came out and said football should be banned, Sean Payton would not be amused. Say some famous movie star, Brad Pitt, came out and said, you know what, at the end of the day, we really got to ban football. Sean Payton would be like, whoa, buddy! There's lots more important things to ban in this country.
Well, did I hear right? Wasn't there an MMA fighter who got killed recently in the ring?
I believe so, but I don't follow MMA. It wasn't a high MMA
Yeah.
guy. It was so I don't know that much about it. Now, that was my number 1 comedian of the week. When I heard it, I laughed out loud. I'm serious. Sean Payton's like, they gotta stop the violence in this culture. I'm like, comedian number 2, Jeb Bush of Florida. What do you think that Jeb Bush said this week that was so funny that made it in the top 3 comedians of the week?
I don't know.
Jeb Bush says he might not go to Republican convention because if Donald Trump is there, there's no way he can support the Republican Party. Now, again, and I can't beat this into the ground enough, Ted hears this in real life every single day of the year. So even though we do the webcast once a week, more or less. So Jeb Bush supported the Republican Party, and at the very beginning of the process of primaries, there were 17 candidates, right?
Right.
They made 17 candidates step up there and say, we pledge to the Republican Party that we will be good soldiers.
And support whoever the nominee is.
And support whoever the nominee is. So all 17 took the pledge, except for that's not right. It was 16 of 17. Trump did not, correct?
Right. I think, and I could be wrong, I think Trump basically said, I will support the nominee as long as I am treated fairly.
Right. Oh, but at the first one...
I'm paraphrasing, and I think that's...
I think, and because I'm trying to remember, if we looked it up, if we weren't using this as the microphone, we could look it up. I think what happened is at the first one, 16 of 17 pledged themselves to the party, and then there was a backlash against Trump, and then at the second debate, Trump said, if I'm, like you said, if I'm treated fairly, I will support the nominee. Well, so far, Jeb Bush just said, well, I don't like the guy, even though I took the pledge, and even though I was there to support the Republican Party when my dad and my brother were there, I don't like this other Republican. Now, you can use it in our business, you can use it in IBM, you could use it in any business. It's real easy to support the guy in charge when you're the guy in charge. It's harder, and we use this in our own business. We have a guy that we work with, and he bleeds blue and white, for Iron Mountain. But I said, if he wasn't in charge, do you think he would bleed blue and white? And Ted knows who I'm talking about. We won't say his name, but when I see Jeb Bush, I see the guy from our work. Well, it's not just our work, it's all work. Oh, you need to bleed blue and white. Well, how about this? How about we put you down here? Are you still going to bleed blue and white? I'm out. If I'm not in charge, I'm out of here. Well, it's the same thing with Jeb Bush. Now, do you think that's a bad analogy?
No.
No, people in charge, they support themselves. And then when you don't support them, they're like, oh, I'm out of here. It's not a two-way street. Jeb Bush pledged support to the Republican Party. And nobody has benefited more from the Republican Party than the Bush family.
Oh, God, yeah.
So for him to come out and say, I can't support the nominee, well, guess what? You're going to have to eat it just like all those people ate it for your dad and your brother. Now, I'm not saying Dad Bush and brother Bush.
In his defense, I believe it is just a Trump thing. I think if it was literally anybody else...
I'm not sure. Well, I'm going to argue with you on this. I think if it was anybody else who ran a state, I think if it was Kasich, he would support Kasich.
Yeah.
I think if it was Christie, he would support Christie. I don't think he would support Fiona. I don't think he'd support Ted Cruz. I don't think
I think he is supporting Ted Cruz.
Oh, is he?
I think so.
Well, see, then I'd be wrong.
I think he did endorse him. I think.
Now, I understand, like, who's the
Ben
doctor?
Carson?
Ben Carson.
Yeah.
Now, Trump was a jerk to Ben Carson. I would understand if Carson would say, I don't support the nominee, but, he Carson
does.
said he will.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I think that there was like a position promised
Well,
for that.
no matter which way you slice it, okay, I'm convinced that Bush is the biggest hypocrite of all 17. Because, like I said, nobody has benefited from the Republican Party more than him.
Yeah.
It's like, well, guess what? You're going to have to take one for the team. No, I ain't taking one for the team. No thanks, I'll pass. And again, I understand people not liking Trump. I understand if you called me Lion Fred, right? And I'd be like, well, you know what? Screw you. I'm not going to go support you. But it's the same party that you pledged your support to. You eat and breathe the Republican Party. So if your party picks Trump, you're going to have to eat it.
Yeah.
And so Jeb Bush is my second favorite comedian of the week.
Yeah.
Ted's shaking his head. Do you seem to disagree?
Well, no, I don't disagree. I'm just thinking the Republican Party is going to have problems no matter what they do.
Oh, yeah.
This cycle.
Yes.
Because they're saying, in all the polls that Trump can't beat Hillary.
Right.
It's like, well, if they pick somebody out of the blue who didn't run, all those Trump people are not going to support them.
Yeah.
So that guy's not going to win either.
Me and my dad were talking about this, and I don't know if he agrees or not with me, or maybe you might disagree. I'm still convinced that when they get to the convention, it's not going to be Paul Ryan. Everybody says, let's draft Paul Ryan.
Yeah.
Okay? I think they're going to be, here's our guys, and then somebody's going to raise their hand in the back of the room and say, I want to jump in the vote. They're going to pan the camera over, and it's going to be Mitt Romney. And he will hardly get any votes in the first round, but by the third round, your nominee will be Mitt Romney, and the Trump supporters will be walking out and swinging at people on the way out. Now,
so, all right, say that Mitt Romney ends up being the nominee. Do you think he has any chance of winning?
No. Because what will happen is Trump will jump third party.
I mean, he didn't win 4 years ago.
Right. And what will happen is all the good Republicans that liked Father Bush and Brother Bush, right, they'll all vote Romney.
Right.
And all the establishment Republicans, and he'll get like 20% of the vote. Trump will go third party. He'll get about 33% of the vote because that's all he ever gets. 2/3 of the people hate him. 1/3 of the people love him. And then Hillary will win with like 41%.
Yep.
And that's what now, I'm not saying for sure it's going to be Romney. In theory, someone else could step up and say, you know what, I'm the candidate. I don't think it's going to be Jeb Bush because I think he's embarrassed enough. You know what I mean? He burned, what was it, 3 weeks ago we talked about him burning through $100 million, literally like $1 million a vote in New Hampshire. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like Romney. But Romney, if you just look at it and take away names, numbers, everything, or take away names, personality, states, I believe it was, 80 million people voted for Romney against Obama?
Yeah, I don't know what the total was.
Whatever it was, say 80 million, 100 million, whatever it was. That's a lot of people who know who Romney is. They had to know to poke his name in there. And they're like, well, he might not be the best candidate, but we like him better than Trump. That's why Trump has to get the number. Yeah. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying whether he is, he isn't, he should or shouldn't. I'm saying that there's going to be shenanigans in Cleveland.
Yep.
I call shenanigans.
My thing is that there is no way in my mind that they can pick somebody who did not run. That is just a slap in the face to, like, all the guys who ran, for one thing.
Right.
You know, because they put, if nothing else, they put a lot of work in. Mm-hmm. And you're going to pick somebody who did nothing?
Right. But I've heard the clips on the radio. I've heard the clip on the Rush Limbaugh show. They had a guy from the Republican Party that said the people don't pick the candidate, the party picks the candidate, and it's not outside the question for us to nominate somebody at the party and run it through. You know that. You've heard it, and I've heard it. But
no, and I understand that. I understand that you have to get 1237, right. Otherwise you don't automatically get the nomination. Mm-hmm. I understand all that. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand
You understand the rules. Yeah.
Right.
But like I said, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're like, oh, Trump's close enough. And
see, in my mind, how can it possibly be fair? Say Trump doesn't get to 1237. Say he gets to 1100.
Right.
And Cruz has 900 and Kasich has 200 or whatever.
Yeah, Kasich, you don't even have to bring him up.
How can it be fair? And I know that he didn't get to 1237, but how can it possibly be fair to not pick him?
Yeah.
Because he still has more than anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I will just never be able to understand that.
I agree. Me and you are thinking the same way, but we're not. Our pay grade is too low.
You know what it's like? It would be like, say Denver played. Who did Denver play in the Super Bowl? Carolina. Say Denver played Carolina this year in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And at the end of regulation, the game was tied.
Uh-huh.
And they said, all right, neither one of you guys win. You know what? We picked the Steelers as the champions. You think everybody would be okay with that?
No, I think everybody would be pissed. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Except for Pittsburgh would be happy. They'd be like, yay!
Well, yeah.
Yay, we got another ring. Do you want to hear my third comedian?
Yeah.
My third comedian is my favorite person, and I don't mean that in a true way. He's not really my favorite person.
It got a lot quieter in here.
Yeah, the refrigerator just went off.
Refrigerator.
There's probably a refrigerator hum in all of our episodes, and we missed it. Because we are broadcasting from the Rock and Roll Break Room. The always amusing Vladimir Putin. Like I said, he's always amusing and scary at the same time. So, this was the third thing, non-traditional comedians. This might have been the funniest thing.
He's almost like their Trump, you know?
Yeah, he is. So, Vladimir Putin said he fielded 74 questions on a marathon call-in show on Russian TV over 4 hours. Now,
how many questions?
74 questions over 4 hours. Could you imagine Obama doing a 4-hour call-in show where citizens just called him up?
No.
Now, I can't imagine it either, but, you'd be afraid to call Putin and say, you suck, and then he trades the phone lines and he comes shoot you, right? So, Obama can't do that, so he's probably going to get tougher questions, okay? But this was the funniest. Two things were funny. One was funny in a funny way, but the other was funny scary.
Were any of the questions about the ring?
No, none of them was about the Super Bowl.
The guy,
did you really steal the Patriots Super Bowl ring? The first thing that made me laugh is the Panama Papers. He finally addressed it. He goes, the Western world is infatuated with the Panama Papers. What are the Panama Papers according to Putin?
A horrible smear.
Yep. A Western plot to destabilize Russia. I'm like, well, if they were going to destabilize Russia, why'd they name all these media tycoons and basically bring down the government of Iceland? I almost said Greece. So I don't agree with them, but it's fun. Again, I laughed out loud. I'm like, yes, it's all an American plot set in Panama. And then the other thing was, and it said, that made me laugh out loud, an 11-year-old boy called up Putin, and he had a question for him. And I'm going to read it straight from the USA Today.
These are all Russian people? Or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, these are Russian. He didn't take any from any other places. Asked by an 11-year-old about his views about eating porridge for breakfast. Putin said, I eat porridge with pleasure every day. Asked whether he was forced to eat porridge as a child, he answered, I generally don't do what I don't want to do. And I couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, so basically his whole life is summed up by one porridge analogy asked by an 11-year-old kid.
What is porridge?
Oh, it's like cream of wheat,
Uh,
but like watery. more,
More watery?
Yeah, more water and less cream of wheat.
Waterier?
Watery. This question was stupid. There were some other funny things. Again, he might as well be a comedian. A 12-year-old girl asked which of his political adversaries he would first save if they were drowning in a lake. Turkish president. Oh man, I ain't naming his name. I'm gonna underline it. Do you think I should even try and pronounce that word right there?
Ooh.
Can we just go with Russian president and be okay with that?
Tayyip Erdogan?
Yeah, I have no idea. Or Ukrainian president Petro Poroshenko. And it said, and Putin says, if someone has decided to drown, it's probably already impossible to save them. How many people decide to drown that? Though, of course, we are ready to reach out a helping hand to any of our partners if they will receive our hand. And I'm like, man. I mean, it's like, you can't write funnier stuff than this. And then, do you ever swear in private? Some kid asks him if he swears in private. He says, only at myself. Because I get angry at myself. And I'm like, I find that, I think he probably swears at people under him every single day since he's been about 28 years old. So, what was some other funny stuff? Do you take medicine imported from other countries? He says, I try not to do that. I try to work out. Well, you always see pictures of him with no shirt on and stuff. It's rare that somebody who's a leader of not the free world, of his country, talks as much about working out as he does. You know what I mean? Like, I don't ever remember anybody talking about working out that much. I remember Clinton talking about it was important to jog every day. But other than that, he would joke around like, well, I would lose more weight if I didn't jog to McDonald's. Wasn't that the Clinton joke? So... whether he's going to go for a re-election in 2018, that's too early. Too early to tell. I didn't think he could run for re-election anymore. I thought that their constitution, forbade more elections for Putin.
Well, how long has he been in power? Since about 2001 or something like that?
Well, he became president, and then he was re-elected. And then they said, well, you can't hold 3 consecutive terms. So
how long are their terms?
I think they're 4 or 5 years. Maybe it's 6. But after the second term, it was his buddy, wink, wink. If we were on TV, you'd see me winking. And then he ran again, and he circumvented because he's like, well, I did not run 3 consecutive terms.
Medvedev?
I think that might have been it, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So I think he's circumventing the Constitution with a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So lighter moments. I'm like, he's funny. So I like non-traditional comedians. Now, did you like Andrew Dice Clay?
Yeah.
He's got a new show out, and that's the whole thing of non-traditional comedians came out because I liked him, but I didn't love Dice Clay like other people did. And I was listening to Sports Talk Radio, it was 92.3 The Fan. And the one host said, listen, when Andrew Dice Clay was filling Madison Square Garden, I was the biggest Andrew Dice Clay fan there ever was. Right?
So who said this?
Adam the Bull on 92.3 The Fan. He's a sports guy. Mm-hmm. And he goes, and I watched that new Dice show, and it is horrible. Yeah. It is an abomination. It is deplorable. He goes, first of all, it's not funny. It's a show about a comedian. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, well, if I can't watch the Dice show, if it's not funny, I want to watch the serious, behind-the-scenes Dice show. So, I rant to Ted all the time. Like, every single day almost. Wouldn't you say that's fair, Ted?
Yes.
And Rolling Stone magazine has something else that drove me crazy. It was a story about how Steve Miller did not enjoy his time at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Was that here this year?
Yeah,
or?
it was here. So he came to Cleveland and he was induced. He was introduced by the Black Keys, who've tried to distance themselves since then. And the article, after they asked him, well, why did you have no fun at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony? And I read this to you before the show, but I'm going to read it to you again because it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Rolling Stone magazine asked Steve Miller, do you think about recording any new albums? No. I don't think about that at all. There is no record business. I record a lot of things. There is no record business. There's no reason for me to spend any money producing stuff that a record company, well, ... All the people that were sitting in the front row tonight, like that guy who came from my record company, I wanted to pull him by his necktie and kick him square in the nuts. Rolling Stone, really? And then Steve Miller, yeah, he's made $1 billion off my work over the last 50 years, and the mother effer just came over and introduced himself tonight. That cheery little thing. You know he won't do any contract work. He won't clean anything up. He won't get anything done. This whole industry effing sucks. And this little get-together you guys have here is like a private boys club, and it's a bunch of jackasses and jerks and effing gangsters and crooks who've stolen everything from the artists. Telling the artists to come out here and do a little tap dance, which more or less sounds like Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
I came out here for my fans. I came out here for the people who take music seriously. And if the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame wants to be taken seriously, they need to put their books out into the public. They need to become transparent. They need to stop lying. They need to stop all the BS and need to clean up. They need to expand it. They need a lot more people. This is the most important thing, blah, blah, blah. And he just, I mean, it goes on and on.
So he's even attacking the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah, because he thinks the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is basically the record executives having a private, you know, we're having a party. And you're invited this year, but you can't come any other years. And once you're in, you know, you go hang out with your friends in there, but you don't hang out with us. Now, Steve Miller, I did not know that much about him. Okay, I like some Steve. It's hard to find a guy who doesn't like a few Steve Miller songs.
Yeah.
Okay, what I did know is that he was 72 years old. Right?
Yeah.
They could have put Steve Miller in 20 years ago. For a 72-year-old guy, he's awful bitter. Okay, I hope I'm not that bitter at 72. I hope I got that kind of piss and vinegar. But man, at 72, I hope I'm not that bitter. Right?
Yeah, that always surprises me that. Because like I told you before, I always assumed that like by the time you got to be a certain age that you kind of mellow out.
Yeah.
But man, I guess it's not true for everybody.
Well, that's the thing. They said his first he was recording albums in the mid '60s, right? He had 18 albums with the Steve Miller Band, one solo album. Which if it's a Steve Miller Band, it doesn't matter if you have a solo album. Yeah. He had 5 top 10 singles in America. You know, The Joker, Abracadabra, Fly Like an Eagle. You would probably know his top 10 hits.
Yeah, I like all those songs.
Yeah. But I don't know if I'd put... you have this argument when you do, like, the Baseball Hall of Fame. Well, there's a Baseball Hall of Fame, and there's a baseball, and there is no Hall of Good. But I don't know if I would put Steve Miller in the Hall of Fame, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, people can argue with me, rap doesn't belong in there, industrial doesn't, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying I like the Steve Miller Band. Did they put him in? I'm not going to argue that they shouldn't have been in there, okay? I'm just saying that if they were great, they would have put him in 20 years ago. Say they were the Steve Miller Band was equivalent to the Beatles. They would have been in 93 or 94, right? They were eligible.
What is it? 25 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he technically was eligible in, let's see, 66, 25. He was, well, there was no Rock Hall in 81, but he would have been eligible as soon as they opened it up.
Yeah.
But like I said, to me, they were borderline, the Steve Miller Band.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm like, man, is he, I mean, that's some anger.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Was the Hall of Fame experience what you thought it would be? No, it wasn't. The whole experience should be completely redesigned and become more artist friendly, right? And in what way? Start with who you can invite, how long you can play. The whole thing is an amateur production, and doing this is harder than doing a 20-city tour, right? What do you mean by amateur production? Rolling Stone says. 100,000 phone calls, the contract work, the licensing still isn't complete. Everybody's kind of a jerk and an ass. H. And every artist you talk to will tell you that. You're lucky everyone didn't effing walk out. It was very, very close. You're an investigative reporter, right, Rolling Stone? Get effing busy. I mean, that's like that's over the top. That's even more bitter than I am.
I wonder if it had anything to do with it being here.
It would have been a nicer production if it was somewhere warm.
And I'm like, how Cleveland always screws everything up.
But I mean, all of his songs were so mellow. You know what I mean? Let's say that Eazy-E didn't die. Okay, I could see Eazy-E coming out and say, "No, this sucks." Yo, yo, yo. You bunch of, backwater, rednecks.
I'm not saying
Cleveland.
that I knew a lot about Steve Miller because I didn't.
Right.
But I would never guess that would be coming out of his mouth.
No, because he seemed like a real laid-back stoner type. It'd be like if, who's the guy who sang Margaritaville?
Oh, Jimmy Buffett?
Yeah, it would be like if Jimmy Buffett came out and said, "This sucks." I'm like, Jimmy Buffett? Steve Miller was a good-time rock and roller. He was not breaking his instruments on anybody that I know of. And to my knowledge, Steve Miller Band is not one of those bands where they were like, "Oh, we hated Steve Miller." You know what I mean? You don't see it behind the music. Who's a famous megalomaniac? I can only think of obscure megalomaniacs. Like somebody that everybody hated working with. He was the lead singer of the band.
Axl?
Oh, there you go. There's a perfect one. Axl. Everybody hated. At one time, everybody who ever recorded with Axl hated him, right? Supposedly, right? So you don't hear those stories about Steve Miller. Steve Miller's not, eating brownies and playing video games for 3 hours while the rest of the band's waiting on the stage for him. So that's why, like you said, it is stunning to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Ted's shaking his head, and I thought you'd have more on Steve Miller. You don't have any more?
No, it's just, like I said, I never knew a lot about him, but my impression was about the same as yours.
Yeah.
That he was kind of like, he made, maybe a dozen really good songs, and he was kind of like, blended in with the woodwork.
Yeah. I remember in the 90s, the girl I was dating said, "Let's go see Steve Miller Band. It's a good, fun night out." And I said, "I ain't going to see Steve Miller Band." And I think it was like right before we broke up. So I don't really remember if it was a Steve Miller Band or if it was like her, because it was like the Steve Miller Band with her and all her friends. You know what I mean? So, but I was like, I didn't really have that. I'm like, I don't want to go sit in the lawn and just get high. You know what I mean? That's not my thing. And then, again, my argument was, well, if it was about the music, basically for 10 or 20 years, all he did was tour every summer. You go out and go in the lawn and get baked. I don't know, that's not really my thing.
Now, have they been together all along, or?
I did not do all the research.
Mm-hmm.
I just know that, like, they keep touring. Like, he said they're going on a 50-city tour, because summer's coming. So I don't know if there was a time where they went on hiatus for 3 years. And Steve Miller Band, they do have rotating musicians. You know what I mean? It's not the same guy since 1966. So I'm sorry that I don't know,
That's pretty commendable, though, to be
Oh, yeah.
72 and still,
Yeah. And if he enjoys it and he still it's just so opposite of what I expected. And again, he's a comedian too, because I'm laughing. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
Apparently you didn't smoke enough pot today.
No, that was hilarious what you were reading.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hilarious for him because he's angry, but it's...
Yeah, he's like, well, you know what I don't think is funny? I don't think your webcast is very funny, Fred and Ted. I think your webcast sucks too. If you guys are here, I'd punch you in the face.
But seriously, stuff like that is some of the most entertaining stuff to me. Which, I don't know what that says about me, but...
Yeah, you were disturbed.
I mean that, though.
Something else that baffled me was this past Sunday. I wanted to watch North Dakota versus Quinnipiac in the college hockey championship. Okay? Now, are you familiar with what state Quinnipiac's in?
Don't they do the polls?
Yes.
Quinnipiac. What state?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going to take a wild guess and say Connecticut.
I'm going to tell you, I have no idea if you're right, because I don't know, and I watched a game, okay? But North Dakota, because I lived in Minnesota for a few years of my life, I know that the Fighting Sioux, and I don't know if they're the Fighting Sioux anymore, I think they're just the North Dakota Sioux now. Not Sioux, the North Dakota Sioux. But I knew of North Dakota because they were a big rival for the U of M, and, I followed Minnesota State, and they were one of the regional powerhouses. So when North Dakota played Quinnipiac, I was kind of rooting for North Dakota. I kind of like them, okay? I kind of do, they're not my favorite, but, that's who I was rooting for. Well, they have long breaks in the periods, and I'm home alone, right? So I'm trying to watch sports. I'm like, I got a whole night to myself. I could watch more sports. So I turned it on ESPN. Okay? On ESPN was the Yankees-Tigers game, but it was rained out, so they were still talking about the Masters. Okay? Now, golf isn't even a sport, and maybe one show we'll talk about that, but golf is horrible, so I'm like, I can't watch this.
Yeah, I can't watch golf either.
So I turn on ESPN2, and again, I was watching ESPNU, the college sports channel. ESPN2 had something called Heroes of the Dorm. Are you familiar with Heroes of the Dorm?
No.
Did you hear the little spiel I was telling Joe Kaufman about?
No.
Heroes of the Dorm, okay, I'm being dead serious with you right now. They started with 4 guys like on a football set. There was 3 men and one woman, and they all looked like they were between 22 and 30. Okay, just think of, the new generation, right? And if you had stereotypical pictures of 22 to 30-year-olds, young, one guy with a beard.
Young whippersnappers.
Young whippersnappers, one guy with a beard, one guy with a short haircut and glasses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like 4, generic-looking millennials, right? And they're talking like they just won the lottery. Oh my God, can you believe tonight's here? Oh my God, this is so exciting that we're on ESPN2. Oh my God, can you believe tonight is the championship? And I'm like, championship of what? I'm watching the championship of college hockey. They are not that excited, and there's only 2 of them, right? It was the video game championships, okay? And they were playing a game, and I don't even know what game it was, because they were showing highlights, and one of them was like Arizona State versus Connecticut. And they're showing highlights of, I guess there were like 5 adventurers on one team, 5 adventurers on another team. They would show pictures of the guys playing the video games, and then they would show the video game on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with America? This is ESPN2. Why are they showing this? Well, I would, out of morbid curiosity, I would turn it on. Oh my God, they almost killed player 4. Player 4 was on the ropes. The 3 guys from Arizona State jumped him, and they attacked him, and they sent his power down. I'm like, I want to take my head and bash it into the wall.
This is video games?
Video game championships. And it was on Sunday night. And again, they had to get decent ratings because, number one, it's on ESPN2, right? Why are you showing video game championships on prime time? They're not showing it at 3 in the morning. This is 8, 9 o'clock at night on prime
Sunday
time.
night?
On Sunday night. And, again, I didn't get to watch the North Dakota-Quinnipiac game. That game ended up being taped. It was on live Saturday, so it was a repeat of the hockey game on Sunday, but I didn't get to watch it, And the Yankees game was postponed, so the only live sporting event on all ESPN formats was Heroes of the Dorm. And I'm like, you know what, maybe Russia should march in here and straighten things out. I don't think there would be Heroes of the Dorm on ESPN2. And it was so obnoxious. Ted, I'm obnoxious, okay? It made me look like, like a golf announcer. You know what I mean? Oh, well, Putin is at it again, and he's a funny guy. And
that's hilarious.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, again, it boggled my mind. And if you turned it on, I can't remember if it was TNT or TBS, Golden State San Antonio was on. So it's not like there was no sports on at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Golden State was chasing the thing, and it's like, this is what ESPN showed. You couldn't put on a minor league baseball game. You couldn't put on another major league game. I find it hard to believe that the Yankees game was the only baseball game on.
It's a sports network.
Yeah. And even by the loosest definition of sports, video games and golf are about the same. Okay? So you got them talking about the Masters and video games. It's like you can't go to a college and find something else going on. I mean, it's baseball season. Put on a college baseball team.
Even a little league game.
Yeah. I'm like, we're going with Heroes of the Dorm, because I talked to Joe a little bit about it.
I mean, even like film of our softball games would have been better.
Wow, those were bad. That might have been more comedy. All right, I'm going to get away from Heroes of the Dorm because I'll just keep beating my head on the wall. So ESPN, they probably got record numbers for video game views, and I just... we're going to keep moving. Every week, I try and bring in a magazine, right? And last week, I forgot to bring in a magazine, but usually, I go to a bookstore and I find a magazine that I like. Not necessarily one you like, because I'm a jerk, right? I find one that I like, and sometimes they're on topic, sometimes off topic music. But I actually went to the bookstore and I said, what's the most interesting magazine that I would never, ever buy if I wasn't doing a webcast? Okay? And I went and I bought a magazine called Modern War. And this is this month's issue, March, April 2016. It's number 22. It's New World Order Battles Hyperwar in the 21st Century.
It's only every 2 months that comes out?
Yes. So I'm like, well, first of all, and it's the subtitle is Military History in the Making, right? I was stunned because I expected to read this magazine in like 3 minutes and be like, this magazine sucks. That was my expectation. Okay? I actually read it for a long time. It was actually really interesting. If you're interested in war, here's the stunning thing. I recommend Modern War magazine. It's actually a good magazine.
So that's a thumbs up for...
Thumbs up, but there's a few things that I wondered. I'm like, who is going to advertise in Modern War magazine? Well, first of all, first page, who's advertising? Video games.
Oh, okay.
War video games are in Modern War magazine. Now here, cash settlement stuff, that's in everything. This one, this one is basically an ad for their sister magazines. I guess Modern War is one of 3 wars. One's World at War, Strategy and Tactics, and Modern War. Well, I didn't read the other 2 magazines, but they're all like sister magazines. But this one, it was actually pretty good. And guess why I thought it was pretty good?
It had something about Russia in there.
There you go. Here it is. The Russia-Ukraine battles. Now, here on page 10, and again, you can't see it on radio, so this isn't good, but this is the Russian geopolitical perspective, right? Not what Washington's perspective of the world is, but what Moscow's view of the world is. Now, when I talk about Putin, everything that's reported about Putin is through the eyes of CNN or CNN,
Fox,
USA Today, Fox, right? Well, it was very interesting, and they said this is how Russia sees the world. And this is how they do their sphere of influence. And I'm like, well, that's interesting because it's giving the Russian view. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Ted's looking at the magazine, so they're showing the Islamic insurgencies and how they're worried about the insurgencies on their southern borders.
Russia is worried.
And like I said, when you look at the map this way, United States is far away. Africa is really close, and Syria is right down the street.
Yep.
And that's why they take terrorism more seriously. I mean, besides their leader, taking it more seriously than our leader who wants to watch baseball games. And again, that's fine. He probably was going to watch. Do you think that Obama would have watched that Yankees-Detroit game, and then when it got rained out, he switched over to Heroes of the Dorm because he's so young and hip? But anyhow, I'm saying that with tongue-in-cheek. But yeah, this is the New World Order according to the U.S. perspective. The last one was the Russian perspective. This is the American perspective. And then, here's the ads. Get our magazine, which it's not really that bad. What is it? For 1 year, it's $27. That's not bad for a year of this magazine. Because what's 27 divided by 6 issues? That means,
$4.50?
Yeah, $4.50 a magazine is not bad. I would pay that for this. But so anyhow, say you like Ukraine better than Russia. Well, this is the Ukrainian, this is the way their army's set up. They're mechanized brigades, right? And it's right here. It's right here in the magazine. We can read all about how the Ukrainian army is set up. Yeah, I know. They got the modern-day Cossacks, right? And then if you go a few more pages, right? And we'll get off this topic because you can't see the magazine that me and Ted are looking at. But right here, here's where all the armies are. I mean, this isn't back in World War II. This is what's going on right this second. And I'm like, you don't see this crap on CNN. You don't see where the brigades are in Ukraine. You don't see where the Russians have marched. That
is pretty interesting.
Yeah, where they've marched into Crimea and they've set things up right here. I mean, it's very detailed. But, again, going back to the Sean Payton is funny topic, we're talking, like, flippantly about war. You know what I mean? And even back in World War II, I don't think they had magazines that had strategy like this in the pages. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in World War II, I don't think, there was a magazine that said, well, the American brigade is charging from the Western Front as the Russians are pushing from the East. And, I mean, this is today. I mean, that's not history. To me, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And for you who can't see it, on page 21, it's a full page map of Ukraine and Russia, and it's got all their troop movements, right? And then it also has the Russian troop movements in Moldova, right? And then nothing's going on in Belarus, but how the Russians have how they have brigades stationed in Latvia, and that's why the people in the Balkans are nervous. I want to know how they know that in such detail.
Now, is the yellow, is that
yellow is the Ukrainian forces, and the blue is the Russian forces. Wow. And when I'm done, I've read this. I thought this was very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
So when I'm done, you can keep this magazine. And, we'll keep moving. Because, like I said, it's hard to explain on maps, but this one goes... Oh, go ahead.
No, Vietnam.
Yeah, so they have what's going on now in Ukraine and Russia. And then, on page 27, they have classic battles, strategy in Vietnam. And then you can see...
this is in the past?
Yeah, this one's in the past. This is when they were running through Cambodia and Laos. And so this one's in the past, but it's still, if we keep going... Because the Vietnam stuff I had honestly seen before. But like this right here, this is that Boko... How do you say?
Yeah, Boko Haram.
Boko Haram, and that's going on right now too. And this is their movements in Nigeria.
Think of Procol Haram.
Yeah, and me too. The whiter shade of pale.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm like, this is today. This is troop movements in Nigeria. So, like I said, and again, I'm not saying war is good. I'm not saying war is bad. Well, it's bad, by nature. But what I'm saying is, when my grandfather, when he was younger, you remember the first Gulf War, it lasted 100 hours, right?
Yeah.
My grandfather taped all 100 hours of the war on VHS tapes, and he taped all of CNN. He's like, oh, it's war in lifetime. And he watched it. He was fascinated by it. He was in World War II. Before he died, at 90 years old, he goes, I want to watch the VHS tapes. And I'm like, Grandpa, you don't have a VCR. And he's like, well, someone needs to fix my VCR. I'm like, you don't have a VCR. You know what I mean? Because he was sliding downward, but he wanted to watch the Gulf War tapes. And from a historical perspective, this magazine is... I cannot fathom how detailed it is. It's like, well, how come it's not on the nightly news? How come we hear about the Kardashians and we're not seeing troop movements across the lake in the Chad? For Boko Haram or whatever. I mean, this is like real news, and it's very detailed about what's going on. It's like some of these pictures of ISIS. It's amazing, ISIS in Africa. And I'm like, I've never seen pictures like this in Africa. They only put the pictures on if they're, torturing somebody. So again, I was very surprised that I enjoyed the magazine this much. This is the Arab Spring, what's going on now. I didn't think that was as interesting. But yeah, so the ads, like what is this? This is a government... The last page is a government ad for FEMA, right? You need to know what to do in case of emergency. Well, this is a tornado. I didn't see the writing, but it took me a second. Tornado.
Oh, yeah.
Get it? Yeah. But I mean, I'm like, I actually learned something. I'm like, I'm too old to be learning crap. Because I go to Walmart with my kids and we'll look at magazines. And half the magazines are like people magazines, and half the magazines are like guns and ammo. And I never read them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, yeah, I get it. It's a gun. Okay, I get it. That's a bigger gun. That's a faster gun. That's a smaller gun, right? But Modern Warfare, I should give them their correct props. Modern War is almost like a news magazine for hardcore news junkies. What's really going on the ground. Ted is shaking his head, like he's kind of baffled by it. Did you know there was a magazine like that?
No, I did not.
And I did not know there was a magazine. And like I said, I love magazines. I talk about magazines every episode. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I will try a different magazine every week. Now, like, it's stuff I would never read. So I was telling this story not about Modern War, but I was talking about magazines to one of our friends who remain nameless. I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to point it to you, right? See this guy right here?
Yeah.
Well, he was nice, and he goes, hey, Fred, I have a High Times magazine. Do you want to talk about High Times? I said, I've never actually read a High Times magazine, but sure, we're going to try something new.
Is that a Pot magazine?
Yeah, that's the Pot magazine. And it's like, oh, well, and I don't want to throw that guy under the bus, you know what I mean? But he goes, do you want my magazine? And I'm like, yeah, so I'm going to read that. So my homework is to read High Times for next week's show. So like I said, Modern War, go out and buy it if you want to know what's going on in the world. So, and again, I'm not saying Russia's horrible and Ukraine's freedom fighters. I'm not saying Ukraine, they're part. I'm just saying that they lay it out on what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying.
Yeah, for some reason I thought Modern War was going to be something different.
Yeah, I did too. Like, hey, when the zombie apocalypse comes, you need to be ready.
Yeah.
Or what if the Chinese come? You need to be ready. I did not expect detailed regiment positions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, holy cow. And I love maps too, because I'm a dork that way. But like I said, maps don't translate to radio very good.
Well, no, I love maps and statistics and,
So, and like I said, if you want to read it and bring it in next week, and you could talk more about it once you read it, that's fine too. So, but yeah, so I have homework, and you're going to check out the Modern War magazine, so check that out. If you're a hardcore news junkie, we are not promoting war. We're not starting war with anybody, to my knowledge. I might be starting war with somebody up front in the office.
Unfortunately, war doesn't need any promotion.
Yeah. We're here to promote war in North Africa. Ted, all of our sports teams suck. And I told you I'm going to let you pick a baseball team. Baseball season started 2 weeks ago. We did not pick a baseball team. Before we started talking today, I told you, Ted, do not pick the Minnesota Twins. They are 0-9. So out of all the other major league teams, you have all the other major league teams to choose from. Do not choose the Twins because they're already 0-9. And in order to make the playoffs, say you need 90 wins, they already have to go 90-60 to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to do that. So anybody but the Twins. Who do you want us to have our team as?
Well, can I pick the Indians?
Yes, Ted is picking the Cleveland Indians. Do you have a reason for picking the Cleveland Indians, or do you just a fan?
Because they're the ultimate underdog.
The ultimate underdog. I actually think the Indians are going to do good this year. But it's because the Royals have done so much better the last couple of years, I'm afraid to get too excited. But I actually listened to the game today. They were beating Tampa Bay 5-0 in the 8th.
All right.
And if we ever get a studio, which might never happen, one of the props I have is I got, and you've seen it, I got the 1954 American League pennant for the Cleveland Indians.
Yes, I have.
So that's gonna be part of the set, as long as nobody steals it.
Now, one of the things I wanted to bring up, did you hear the latest thing about Johnny Manziel? What was it, a couple days ago?
Oh, he got another accident.
He got into an accident.
Yeah.
But somebody else was driving, right?
Right.
And I heard that he escaped on foot.
Yeah.
And that Josh Gordon came and picked him up.
I heard the report.
See, that to me, that is also as funny as the Steve Miller story.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. And let me go back.
That was what, in Hollywood? Or
Yes. Do you remember when I was making Heroes of the Dorm?
Yeah.
Making fun of Heroes of the Dorm. And I was making fun of millennials. Well, the guy who was driving the car was a famous millennial. He was like a YouTube sensation or an MTV sensation.
He's not in sports.
No.
Okay.
He's famous for new media. He's the one who drove the car into the pole. Him and Johnny Manziel jumped out of the car, ran away, called Josh Gordon, and then Josh Gordon came and picked them up. And then later they walked back to the car and said, "Yo, dog, what happened?" Because the police are there. There's a car smashed into the pole. And that's why it's
another thing. I wonder what Josh Gordon was doing. What else was he doing that he wasn't with them? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What was Josh Gordon, like, doing his taxes or something?
Oh, I don't know.
What I'm getting at is that you assume that Josh Gordon would have been with them already.
Yeah. Well, you don't know because, again, the cops were there because there was a car crashed into a pole and nobody there. So someone called the cops. Now, the report was Johnny called the cops. But, again, they go and there's nobody there. Josh Gordon picked them up, and then I'm unclear whether they went back or if they walked, because I wasn't there. Right? But you are right. Josh Gordon did pick them up. And they're like, well, we have a witness that said you were here. He goes, oh, yeah. Johnny Manziel. Yeah, I was there, but I wasn't driving. I was in the passenger seat. And the witnesses are like, oh, yeah, it was someone else. Now, again, because I am not hip and, I'm a big old square, right? I don't know who the driver was. I don't know who the famous, for all I know, it was one of the guys from.
I've heard his name, but I can't remember.
Yeah. But what bothers me, because once Johnny's cut, the whole reason I wanted Johnny Manziel to be cut is so they didn't say Cleveland Brown quarterback Johnny Manziel. Now they're basically like celebrity quarterback Johnny Manziel. At least they're not associating the Browns. But then they go and say Cleveland Browns wide receiver Josh Gordon. It's like, why isn't Josh Gordon living in Cleveland? Say he hates Cleveland. Let's say he hates Cleveland. Okay? Live in goddamn Columbus. Okay? Live in Cincinnati. Live in... Why do you have to live in L.A. with John? Of all the places in the whole world, why do you have to live... Say you absolutely hate Ohio. Live in New York. Why are you in L.A. with, Josh Gordon is from... He went to Baylor, correct?
I think so, but I don't know.
Go hang out with your boys in Texas.
No, it seems like they're pretty close.
Yeah.
Have they been friends for a while, or is this like a relatively
They said
new?
that they were friends. Again, I don't know this for a fact, but like they went to some college camps together.
Yeah.
And they were kind of friends, but then when they were with the Browns, they were really good friends. Like they were acquaintances in college because, one was at Baylor and one was at A&M. You know what I mean? They ran in the same football circles. So that's why it just boggles my mind that people are that stupid.
So nobody actually got hurt.
Nobody got hurt, but...
And that's the only reason it's funny. If
Yeah.
somebody would have gotten hurt, then it wouldn't be funny at all. But like when nobody gets hurt and you do stuff like that, it's hilarious.
It is. And again, it's funny because, like you said...
But you
no one
can't
got
control
hurt.
when somebody's going to get hurt or not. That's why you can't do stuff like that.
But it's funny because you got to imagine Johnny Manziel being high as a kite and he's walking back. Hey, yo, dog, what happened? I don't know. You tell me you were here. Oh, yeah, but I wasn't driving. I didn't ask you if you were driving.
I'll guarantee those guys are having a blast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And like I said, the problem is that sooner or later, something's going to go horribly wrong.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you
while
a
you're
question.
doing stuff like that, there's nothing more fun than that.
Last week, they were talking to Johnny, and again, he's not a Cleveland Brown anymore. And Johnny Manziel said in his own voice, he's like, listen, I don't know what the problem is. You see me at the club every night. You see me at this club every night for the last 6 nights. Okay? Ted, you don't have to tell me details. But when you were the coolest of the cool, when you were in the band, right? And your band, tell us your band name again.
Wasted Space?
When you were in Wasted Space, were you ever in a club 6 nights in a row?
No.
No. Even when you were in the band, you were never in the club 6 nights in a row. Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hola.
We were just talking about Ted's band days.
Nice.
So
Comparing them to Johnny Manziel's
yeah.
escapades.
Even when you were in the band, you were never in the club every night. And he's like, oh, I'm in the club every night. And it's just amazing to me that he doesn't even see anything wrong with that. He's like, well, why wouldn't I be in the club? It's the off season. Now, did you hear what his degenerate agent said today? Yes, Bob's right. He's waving goodbye.
He said, clean it up or goodbye.
Well, he said that a while ago.
Well, what happened is, I can't name his agent, but a couple months ago, his agent said, see you later. Mr. Smith, whatever his agent's name was. Within 2 days, Drew Rosenhaus, the agent of everybody, all the stars have Drew Rosenhaus. He's like, I'm taking Johnny on. Yesterday, Drew Rosenhaus said, listen, as of today, you are terminated.
Oh, okay, so this is a new agent.
The new agent.
Okay,
so
see, I
this
didn't
is
know
his
that.
second agent in the last, 3-4 months, Bob?
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
Yeah, so Drew Rosenhaus said it's terminated, but Johnny, I love you, which, how can you love a guy after 3 months? You love his money or the celebrity he brings you. Drew Rosenhaus is one of the biggest scumbag agents there is, okay? He was the guy who was the agent of Terrell Owens.
All right.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And So he says, I love you. I'm not going to sign this termination sheet for 5 days. If within 5 days you go to rehab, I will not terminate you. So again, it's part I love you, but it's part pub grab. You know what I mean? You either fire him or you don't fire him, or you say you need to get help to him. You don't go to the media and say, I have given Johnny Manziel an ultimatum.
And how long ago was this?
Yesterday. So this would be day 2.
So Johnny, you have 4 more days.
4 more days. And again...
Do you think Johnny Manziel is listening?
You know what? I think he might, because Drew Rosenhaus, again, because he's the biggest scumbag.
No, I mean to our...
Oh, no. Johnny's not listening to this. Johnny doesn't listen to his parents, okay? But I think he might listen to Drew Rosenhaus, because in his mind, all the biggest stars have Drew Rosenhaus, and Drew Rosenhaus supposedly said, and this part I only heard secondhand, he said he has never fired a client before. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
People have retired, so, they don't need an agent anymore, but he has never fired a player. It looks bad if the agent fires the player. He goes, it's never happened before. That's why I'm giving him 5 days to go to rehab. And if he goes to rehab, I won't terminate it. Again, Drew Rosenhaus is master of the pub grab, right? So I don't believe that for a second. I mean, as a human being, I'm sure he cares a little bit about him, but the number one reason he did it was for publicity for Drew Rosenhaus, because he likes to see himself. I wrote this down because you were talking, but let me go back to it before I forget. We were talking about Kasich, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, don't talk about Kasich. I do want to bring something else up. Drew Rosenhaus loves pub grabs, right? Do you remember when Dennis Kucinich ran for president and there was no chance to win after like the 3rd primary?
Yeah.
Now, I hope Kasich does hear this, okay? I voted for Kasich in Ohio because I want a contested convention. I want to see fistfights.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be great TV.
I voted for him too.
Yeah. But once he was mathematically eliminated, I wanted him to get out because he's just flushing money down the toilet. Now, he is basically the Republican version of Dennis Kucinich. He's like, I like to see myself on TV. I'm the son of a mailman. I think I can still be president.
They do kind of remind me of each other. You know what I mean? They're both kind of the same type.
Yeah.
They're almost like, you almost feel sorry for both of them.
Yeah, you almost feel sorry for Kasich. Like, doesn't he know any better?
He's like the Indians. You know what I mean? You just root for them because you feel bad for them.
Yeah, they're the underdogs. But like I said, the Indians, as of today, they can still go to the playoffs, right? All they have to do is win 87 games and say they're only 3-3. So they'd have to go, 84 and 70, whatever the math is. Kasich cannot win. He cannot win. They said he needs to get 120% of the delegates that are remaining.
Yeah.
Well, it's impossible to get the final 120%. So now you're Kucinich. You just like the trips to states, and you're either setting yourself up for next time, or you like watching TV and seeing yourself on it.
Well, and I'm just guessing, but I think Kasich is staying in, hoping that it's a contested convention. So that way, if it gets to like the 3rd ballot or something, he's hoping that maybe they'll see, hey, in the polls against Hillary, you have the best numbers.
Let me make a prediction because I haven't been making predictions. Let me write this down. When's the Republican National Convention?
Do you hear a ruckus out there?
Yeah, I hear a ruckus. Just so you know, Joe got sent to Michigan, but I think I hear Joe's voice. Okay, let me make a prediction and then I'll save it. Okay, prediction. Republican National Convention, when is that? It's June, July?
It's July. I think it's like the middle of July.
July, let's say, we'll just put July 20th because it'll be past the convention. Okay, prediction for July 20th. Kasich needs 120% of the vote. Okay? Now, my prediction, Fred says Kasich will not be in top 3 past first ballot. Okay? Kasich thinks magically people are going to start voting on him. The second ballot, third ballot. I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. Okay? If it goes to a contested convention, Trump and Cruz, all their delegates are going to line up basically what they got. Like Fiorina or whatever her name is.
Carly.
Hey, welcome to Beacon of Speech! What are you doing here?
What do you mean?
I thought you were going to spend the night in Michigan.
No, why would I do that?
Because you love the mountains so much.
I love the mountains.
Hey, we're on our last 5 minutes. We're like an hour and 15 minutes in. Are you leaving in the next 5 minutes?
No, why?
I hear you yelling at me. Let me finish this. Let me save the file, and then I want to talk to you about work, but I don't want to talk about it on the webcast.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about work on your webcast either. I don't want to get in trouble. Because I love the mountain too much.
Well, talking about loving the mountain, I understand that your boss, and I'm going to write his name, I'm not going to say it, he was very angry today.
With me?
No, not with you, in general.
Yeah.
Because everything happens to him.
It's life. It's like one big kick in the balls.
It's funny, we were talking about, you should have been at the webcast, we were talking about getting kicked in the balls today.
Yeah, that's what life is, man.
Give me 5 minutes, you're not leaving in 5 minutes.
No, I got.
Oh, by the way, I know it only saves you like a half an hour, but I did do RoadNet. I put it on.
I didn't call you, you didn't answer.
Yeah, the phone died again. Our $4 billion company, my flip phone lost its charge again.
Hey, mine too.
I told you these flip phones, it don't matter if you switch the battery, they're goddamn flip phones. Okay, I'm sorry. So anyhow, Kasich, there's gonna Joe's yelling, "Welcome to Beacon of Speech" in the garage. So anyhow, everybody will hold their delegates the first round if it comes to a contested thing. Once they free up the delegates, nobody's voting for Kasich. Kasich is delusional. Kasich is whacked out on meth if he thinks that anybody's going to vote for him in that second wave of ballots. Okay? So my prediction is past the first, because he'll be number 3 or number 4 in delegates, right?
Yeah.
Because Rubio has like 200 and Kasich has 150 or whatever. Once the first ballot goes through, Kasich will not be in the top 3. Kasich will be punchline. Kasich will be a punchline. Like Dennis Kucinich. So like I said, he is delusional, he's high, whatever metaphor you want to use. If he thinks he's going to jump in and jump over the other two,
I honestly think that he thinks that the party bigwigs, if nobody gets to 1237, they're going to look and they're going to see who's the establishment guy who has the best chance of beating Hillary.
I'm not arguing your point, and I could even agree that's what he thinks.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that he has mental illness if that's the way he's thinking. Kasich has mental illness. And he could be like, oh, you're a jerk. Well, guess what? I voted for you.
Guess what?
I know mental illness when I see it. Okay? So my prediction is July 20th, he will not even sniff the nomination. Okay, now, do you want
it's going to be fun, though.
Oh, yeah. Now, do you want in on this prediction about Kasich?
Let's see. What do I think is going to happen to Kasich?
Yeah, specifically to Kasich. You don't even have to name the nominee. You don't have to name anything. What do you think Kasich is going to do? Do you think he's going to come out as the nominee? Do you think he's going to lose to Trump? What do you think is going to specifically happen to Kasich?
I think that somehow Trump is going to be the nominee, and he's going to pick Kasich as his
you think he's going to be the VP? Okay. Yeah. Well, hey, Ted, that's fair. Because that's why it's not... Ted, if it was just me screaming, I wouldn't get other perspectives. You think it's going to be Trump Kasich ticket.
Right.
Because everything I read, it's going to be Trump... who's the fat guy?
Oh,
Trump Christie.
Yeah.
But then I also read that Christie doesn't want vice president. He wants...
Yeah, but whoever says that they want it.
Right.
None of these guys
Well,
ever said,
supposedly,
yeah, I'll take
Christie
that.
wants, like, a job with power, like Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Or, like, oh, I would make a great Supreme Court justice. What? So supposedly Christie is angling for a job that's a real job where you have real power. You know what I mean? So, okay, wait. I got to put Ted inside. Ted's prediction inside. Okay. I can't spell inside. Apparently my brain is broken. All right. We're at 1:20. I want to talk to Joe before he leaves. He did not look happy. When we walked, and we have talked about this ad nauseum, we're broadcasting from the break room of Iron Mountain in the rock and roll break room where there's no TV, no music, but there's pictures of records on the walls, right? Outside the entrance of the rock and roll break room, somebody took their coffee and threw it against the wall. There's coffee all over the wall. Somebody was obviously very mad today. Well, I don't drink coffee, okay? So, and I know it wasn't me because it wasn't me. And I know Ted, you are the counterbalance, okay? If I screamed and then you screamed the whole time, it would sound like a Don King, family reunion, okay? So I want to find out who came in and threw coffee up against the wall. I know the two people who I think it is, and Joe's going to help us out. Ted, thank you so much for doing Beacon of Speech with me. Again, it's always an honor to see you. Read the Modern War magazine.
I will.
My name is Fred Hunt. We did a movie called Blasphemers the Movie. If you go to blasphemersmovie.com, you can watch it for free. Song of the day, because it's non-traditional comedian day, is Fly Like an Eagle by the Steve Miller Band.
I still have nothing to promote.
You got to find something to promote. You could, hey, if we ever got on TV, you could promote your houses for sale.
Okay.